Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about drawbridge logic. Throughout history, city walls were made as protection from the enemy. They were usually massive structures enhanced with guard towers. Some were built on hills, making invasions more difficult, while others fronted seas and oceans to protect the towns from invaders in ships or, in some cases, pirates. Castles and walled cities are surrounded by moats and drawbridges. The drawbridge that crosses the moat and connects to the road was drawn up and effectively closing off the castle or city from invaders. This same logic is often applied by people detecting bullshit or harm approaching. So when you see some nonsense coming your way, you close yourself off to it and you deflect it. But I feel in this time where there is no more common sense, it's harder and more difficult to do this on a larger scale because people aren't united as much as they were before. So we often bring up the drawbridge when it comes to our families and keeping nonsense out of our homes. And some people are more effective than others at keeping this out of our homes. But yet if you have children, you find yourself deflecting all types of invaders coming from all different parts. Your kids will come home with questions, asking about things that they've seen at school or on the way home or out in the street.
Or their friend's house, too.
Or their friends' homes, exactly. And you have to explain, listen, your friend has a home setting that is different than ours. And so their parents either allow things or they're not there to stop things from happening because maybe they're at work all the time. So you have to understand that just because you see your friend doing something or their parents allowing it does not make it right. So you do what I call damage control, where you have to basically try and prevent the kid from performing unnecessary thought experiments. Now, of course, that's impossible because they're young and they're curious and they want to find out how things work. And they mess with things until they break, and sometimes often themselves. But you apply this to make sure that your job is done even when you're not around. That the child you're raising is basically not, I won't say idiot proof, because that's hard to do with young people, but they steer clear of nonsense. Take us, for example, right? There was a lot of stuff to get involved in as kids. And I did get involved with things to a certain degree, but I always kept myself at enough distance where I could see it and walk away from it.
This shit was entertainment. It wasn't a lifestyle. You dig? Like, when you ran into something, you're like, I'm curious about it, but that ain't me. I'm not about to run like, nah, man, I ain't stupid. My parents worked too hard. They taught me too much shit. Like, some of that shit is, like I said, it's entertainment. And I think that's what, like, when people want to be rappers or singers or performers, that's great. If you got real talent and you work at it, you're going to get something. Sometimes it's got to be just for you. Sometimes people might not buy your shit right off the bat, but you got to make sure that you're performing for you.
Okay. But see, here's the thing. So we'll take rap music, for example. As gangster music was developing, I was there in it. I was in the streets all around that shit. And I could see what was real and what was fake. And I could see how this is being targeted at a group of young people that are so impressionable that they hear something and they think, oh, well, this has to be the truth. Or this has to be exactly, the way they say it is, which we found out in many cases it wasn't. But as young black kids, we also knew that we came up with people that were liars, with people who would, fabricate stories, who would make up shit. So
embellish.
Just because a person has a platform to do that doesn't mean it's going to stop, And there were people who faked it until they make it. And we all knew people like that, even as small children. But the problem is that you have more weaker-minded people around you that are hearing these things and are willing to do harm to themselves and others because the military-industrial complex and intelligence agencies have brought guns and drugs into the community to destroy it. And many of these young people didn't realize that they were actually participating in their own destruction.
Hey, so can we, if we stay on music, you got to look at the music industry and look at the music industry preys on poor people and broke people. Very, you have successful people that come from the suburbs and come from a well-to-do life, but they don't get taken advantage of like a motherfucker that's poor. The
So
Jackson Five,
the Jackson 5 is a good example, but check this out. So remember that girl that was on that video that was circulating in the last couple of months where she was in a grocery store and the baby was in the shopping cart
yeah,
and the
yeah,
baby had no clothes on, just a diaper, and the baby was shaking and shivering, and an old black woman rolled up on the scooter and was like, "Hey,
put
is
this on.
everything okay?
Bo-
Like this
Bottom of
this
coat.
baby is freezing. I'm gonna put here. I'll if you let me put this coat on him, I'll buy it. I bought this coat. I just want to put it on him because he's cold." And the woman was throwing frozen food. She was in the frozen food aisle, taking it out of the freezer and throwing it into the cart onto the baby that was not clothed.
She was also walking around in like some looked like a
Twerking. She
jogging.
was, and then like when she was confronted, she started twerking like
Yes, yes, yes.
that
But
is some
even
MK Ultra shit. That's an MK Ultra
her,
response.
her
Listen,
garb was it
I had listen. I have seen ratchet hoes my entire life.
a whole life.
Hold
I
on,
dig it.
stop. No. Let me speak. No, I've seen trash people my entire life, but ratchet is a new level of that. So that's a person that's 3/5 a crackhead. You know what I'm saying? And that's a second generation crack baby. So then that's a person whose brain chemistry is warped and mutated by substances that the mother or grandmother did that's passed on genetically. So then you add messaging and mind control on top of that, which is also inserted into music. It's been proven, there's a patent for it, that a person can be programmed to behave a certain way, which is why this woman started twerking when she was confronted on
By
her
adults.
shitty level of parenting. Right. She was trying to rebel against these adults that were calling her out for being a shitty mom.
And also, this is one of the things I mentioned on last podcast. I think if people make too big a deal about children, as if children, you should be a good parent, but if you're not a good parent, that's not illegal. But that shit she was doing was neglect. That was real neglect. See, the term neglect gets tossed around. You know what I'm saying? And it's like anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic? No, I'm not. I'm just pointing out the fact that you're this, and this. Um, Look, to be a parent, all it takes is an activity. It doesn't take intelligence. It doesn't take responsibility. You don't have to mature. And some people can have mental issues.
But this, I
Before,
also want to say, this isn't just parenting. If you're an uncle or an aunt, or you're even, say, a stepbrother, or perhaps you're even a person, who adopted a kid, you still have to be vigilant against all forms of attack. And they aren't all physical.
hold it. The deepest shit you're saying is that you got to block the bullshit when you're a parent,
Block it.
because you have a message you're trying to instill in your children. The point I was making about the music industry is the music industry preys on poor people, not just as an audience, but also as talent. Because, like I said,
Exploitation.
yes, because if you're smart and you got money, you don't need them. Or when you sit here and look at all these people that walked away from music, like Cece Peniston and Stacey Lattisaw, and all these women that were young and said, "Hey, this ain't for me," and you're like, "Oh man, she threw away an opportunity." No, she didn't. No, they did not. They saw something and they're like, "Look, that goes against my principles." And the other thing is when you're finding out how these contracts work, all these rappers are coming forward and you realize that they were thousandaires and not millionaires. You know what I'm saying? And the prime example I'm going to give is Salt and Pepper. For their first 3 or 4 albums, they only made 100 grand, and finally, was it Black's Magic? Whatever the first album they wrote on their own went platinum, and they made all the money from that. But the point I'm making is that they were getting played by Herbie Lovebug, Azar, and Next Plateau Records. They were getting played, but we all know their music. And when they started doing Shoop and some other stuff, that's when everything started working out. But before that, Push It, we know their classic, Tramp, and their old stuff.
They
But the
had
point I'm
notoriety, they had fame, but they didn't have nothing to
their
show.
fortune. They didn't have fortune. And thing was, dude was taking advantage of them. Well, let's not pretend like they made bad business decisions. They may have, but one of the worst business decisions people make is signing that contract. And whenever you see these people go independent or don't sign the contract, the music industry does their best to punish them. And now we're seeing a lot of these blackmail tactics with Puffy. We know now, we know he was exploiting people sexually, financially, and everything else. He was doing men and women. We get that. But when you pay attention, he was also fucking over artists and producers and keeping all their rights. Now he's sitting there giving the rights back to like these artists. And then one chick is like, no, we're suing them. The white chick is like, do not take this offer. And when you find out what the offer is, she said the offer is $800. You might make $800, $900 a year off of streamings and shit. She's like, it's not worth it. Puffy owes us more money. So it's one thing to prey on somebody being poor. It's another thing to manipulate somebody completely. And that's what this music industry does. The reason I'm bringing it up is that because you need that drawbridge protection. You need to be like, you know what? I like this, but I need to do this in small doses, or I need to get away. Or they sent Usher to Puffy's finishing school, and the only thing Puffy did was probably molest that little boy. You know, yeah. And Usher is very intelligent. How he's like, yeah, Puffy has a great work ethic, and this, that, and other. You know, he doesn't sleep. I understand where that can get you. You work hard, you'll get what you want. They said, hey, would you send your son? He said, hell no. Fuck no, I wouldn't send my, because there's other things that go on. But this is why that drawbridge protection is so important, because sometimes, you know what, that answer is no matter what. 3 episodes ago, we talked about my personal experience with not wearing a dress. That just wasn't me. I put my drawbridge up. Now, the other motherfuckers I was with, they thought about it. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to be actors. They're like, I'll do what it takes to be an actor. And I'm like, I won't. Like, you know, I can buy a camera and produce some shit on my own. My best friend, my brother is in the music industry. He's in the entertainment industry. He's in the movie industry. If I wanted that lifestyle, me and you could have had it. But I damn sure wasn't going to wear a dress to do it. Sometimes the answer is no, and that's how they get you. They trick you into thinking being open-minded. All being open-minded means is that they're trying to manipulate you. You don't have to be open-minded. You know right from wrong. And I think that nowadays we don't have that anymore. And to me, sometimes the answer is no. Like, no, I'm not going to be wearing a dress. No, I'm not going to sleep with a man. No, I'm not doing this. No, and the other thing is, you were talking about that young woman who had the child in the cart and the twerking. How the hell did twerking become a fucking battle cry? How did twerking become our Black Power fist?
It isn't.
You know what I'm saying?
Because it isn't.
But it is for some. She didn't know what to do, though. That shows that she did not know what to do. And who knows? Maybe that wasn't her son. Maybe that was her little brother. Maybe her mama is worse. And maybe you were right. That's a second generation crackhead, and she was actually trying to do a good job. But she just didn't have the money for the clothes or whatever. Because if you looked at her garb, it was not appropriate. She wasn't appropriately dressed either.
Dude, but women dress like that going to the grocery store all the time. We're in this era now where people are wearing fitness gear all the time, and they don't work out.
But I think she was wearing cowboy boots and sweatpants.
No, she's wearing Uggs. She's wearing Uggs.
Excuse, that's another thing. It's so okay. It's so hard to parent now, because when me and you were kids, we looked up to our parents. These kids are looking up to their parents, but their parents ain't shit. And what I mean by that, I remember, like, when the first time I met you, you had a hat like your dad, and it had the fucking flaps that go over your ears, and it had the little bill on it, and it was like super warm. And I'm like, I want a hat like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was blue. It was blue. Yeah.
Yeah. We were at Thunderbirds, but
it was wintertime. It had to be wintertime if I'm wearing some shit like that.
Yep. But that's my point. Your father prepared you to go outside in that. Your mother wouldn't let you go out without a coat. That's why.
And your mom never let you go outside without some tissue in your pocket.
Oh yeah, Uh, you know, hey, we'll talk about that in a second. But but it's just the fact that these parents are so shitty, but these kids are copying them because I used to have to fight with my kids about these Uggs. My kids would want to wear Uggs and stuff, and I'm like, nah, it's too cold. They're boots; they keep you warm. I'm like, no, Uggs are basically house
Those
shoes
are house shoes.
with soles on the bottom.
Yeah, you wear
You
them
know,
around the house if you got hardwood floors, or you have a
and
basement and you want your feet to be
you can
warm.
wear them to the if you're driving, you can wear them to the at the mall, but you can't wear those out in the elements. That's not real. And I used to have to fight with them about the shit, and I'm like, second, them shit's expensive, So
So you think you're gonna wear these everywhere and tear them up, and then go buy some more? No,
and they cost $200. You know what I'm saying? Don't leave out the most important part, the $200. Um,
because they're made by people for people that don't do a lot of walking.
you're, that that look, one of the deepest shits when New York hip hop. I'm not talking about New York rap. I'm not talking about the old days, but when hip hop blew up in '91 or so, and you had motherfuckers wearing Timberlands, and we started wearing Timbs, and I'm like, oh, this shit is dope.
I
You
never
know,
liked Tim's. Never liked them.
liking them and wearing them.
Never wore them.
Actually,
I never wore them
they were
because Timberland came out with a statement around that time saying we don't want y'all wearing this shit. We don't make them for y'all.
Look. I always heard those rumors. Don't know if it's true.
Yeah,
But
it was
but
no, it was confirmed.
hold it. I wasn't disagreeing with you. What I was simply saying is that if you wore Timbs, they were like an all-purpose boot. They were a construction worker boot.
But
These
you
niggas when they got
never saw these dudes wear these things. They never let their Timbs get dirty. They never
yeah,
they
yeah,
didn't. They're like people who wear Jordans nowadays, and they never
yeah,
play
yeah, yeah.
basketball in them.
That is true. But all I was saying was that was actually something that you could,
It
if you
was
had
a
to get a
status
job.
symbol for poor people. A pair
It,
of expensive ass Timberland boots was a status symbol.
but it
It
was
was like a
also something.
Rolex for your feet.
But you could actually wear them and go to work. Is what I was saying. You could
Hmm.
actually work construction and the steel toe joints. Now the shit now they make so many different ones. Yeah, yada yada yada. But what I'm saying is we had a different type of, I don't want to use role model, but a different type of what we were into. And when we saw our fashion was functional. These motherfuckers' fashion is just fashion. You understand what I'm saying?
Dude,
These
remember
are
those red Mega Man boots these little boys was wearing like a
oh my
year and a
fucking
half
lord.
ago?
Look,
And
we were joking about it.
they were plastic boots that they
Yes,
didn't breathe
foam
at
rubber.
all. Foam rubber boots that didn't breathe at all. Your feet are gonna stink like hell when you pull them out
You
of
can
them
wear those
things.
twice. Where, and if you don't believe it, think about all those clear Air Force Ones that blew up at one point in time. I had a pair of clear Air Force Ones. Feet sweat. After 15 minutes, you couldn't see your feet no more because there was a film of sweat
Hmm.
inside the motherfucker.
Yeah, it's
And the
not
motherfucker
practical.
stuck. No, like I said, the shit's not practical, and it's really hard to explain it to your kids. When the other thing you brought up earlier is what the message are that your kids are getting at somebody else's house.
I'll give you an example. All right, so there was once a time when porn was found in the woods, or it was
Yeah, yeah,
found on the way home by the porn fairy who sprinkled it carefully through the woods for us to find and check out. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I
But
dig it.
no, but no. Now it is in the school library.
Mm.
Within the past two
So,
years, there have been school board meetings with parents and teachers about the books that contain graphic depictions of sexual acts that had been included in school library books.
school curriculum. When you read this stuff, you wouldn't
No, no,
believe
no.
that.
But these are books, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these are listen. So school boards and public officials look to prevent books deemed inappropriate for children entering schools. But in January of 2023, the state of Virginia's Madison County School Board removed 21 titles from libraries citing adult content.
I think what's also
Listen, there
frustrating.
was a 2015 book, a novel called Him by Sabrina Bowen and L. Kennedy, and it depicted oral sex to a
Yeah,
T with detailed instructions on how to do this. So these girls who've never done this before can read this book and learn how to perform oral sex. There's another book that talks about anal. And I'm like,
Gay sex,
yo, no. It wasn't. It was for
Oh,
a girl in the story who didn't want to lose her virginity, but she still wanted to have sex. So she did anal with this guy. Man, listen, this
that's
shit
called.
is foul. Now, it's related to demoralization. And about 8 years ago, so in 2015, former Congressman Tom DeLay gave an interview where he spoke about a secret Department of Justice memo that would legalize 12 perversions.
Oh,
And one of them included pedophilia, sexual deviance, drug drug overdoses. Yeah, this is crazy, man, because um, it was around the time that the Supreme Court had passed a ruling regarding same-sex marriages, and all these conservative people were freaking out. But that wasn't really the big thing to freak out about, because there was at the same time a Department of Justice memo that was going around that talked about these 12 perversions, including bestiality, is one of them. Yeah.
look, that's why this drawbridge, what'd you call it? Drawbridge, protect. It's necessary. Some shit needs to be kept out.
So because
Some
he
shit.
said what his quote is, he said they have a whole list of strategies to go after the churches, the pastors, and any businesses that try to assert their religious liberty. This is coming, and it's coming like a tidal wave. So if you kind of like look at that for a second, and you see like how in social media, porn has been on Twitter since the beginning.
Period.
Yeah, but I noticed though, like it's been toned down a little bit because.
But
Go ahead.
I'm
What you
sorry.
want to say?
I was going to say because Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter, people thought he was buying Twitter to make a point. He wasn't. And I keep trying to tell people, look back. I want to say it's like 2003, 2004, when Elon Musk talks about having a website that would be an all servicing bank. And he said it would be called X.com. Look it up. And I'm like, I'm watching this, and that's when I realized he bought Twitter to make it a bank. Because think about how many members that are already on Twitter. And me and you had talked about this off air. I think I talked about it on air one time. Just find an old video of Elon Musk talking about X. And this is long before Twitter existed and long before he bought it. And then that's what makes me think the reason he got Twitter is look how many people are on Twitter already. So if you buy a platform that already has a shitload of members and then you transition it, I'm going to give a prime example of online betting. Online betting is illegal, was illegal in every state. But then you had fantasy football and fantasy sports. So then as these states would pass laws to make gambling legal, those fantasy sport whatever websites already had a shitload of members, and they would transition right into online gambling. So then all of a sudden, you don't have to issue new accounts. You don't have to sell your product. These people are already familiar with your website. Now they're able to bet real money. And this is the exact same thing. You already have 200 million subscribers to Twitter. Now you become X. You already have a lot of their information. Now you make it a financial online bank. You instead of everybody having to warm up like Greenwood, where you have Killer Mike and these people started from scratch. You got a shitload of members who now are using Twitter for banking. So that's why I'm like, people think this guy is just so wholesome. That's the word. He's a wholesome billionaire. No. And for what he bought it for and what he's going to probably do with it, he will make his money back. All of a sudden, now you got to pay for verifications, or you got to pay for. So I was on Twitter and I saved something. I saved a couple of different things. When I go back to get them, you have to have premium Twitter to access it, even though unless you
Really?
use it
Like
now.
what?
It's like you could save a file. Like say you see a video. I saw a video. I was trying to show it to my wife, and me and my wife was talking self-defense. I said, look, when you're shooting at somebody, they're not taking out the fight. you hear these military guys talk about it. Somebody can be mortally injured and still kill you, and it doesn't make sense to say it, but you have to see it. I saw a video where it was like a bank. I think it was either overseas or it was like in California, because everybody it was Asian. This guy tries to rob the area, and the security guard sees him right away, caps him, bop, pop, two to the face. But that guy he hadn't died yet. He's bleeding, and he's shooting at people. He's still shooting at people. Then he realizes, oh shit, I can't stop bleeding, and he runs to the revolving door and passes out. He doesn't make it out the door. But that security guard shot him twice, jumps over and tries to get away from him. This guy's still trying to shoot at him. So I was trying to show this video to my wife, and it says you can save this file. So I saved the file, right? And so then when I try to access it, hey, babe, I want you to watch this video. This is a good training video. You must have premium Twitter to access what you've saved. I'm like, you motherfucker. I'm like, so look, we're trying to say that sometimes it's just good to keep the bullshit out. But what's frustrating is when we're trying to unite our black people or our race or our Native Americans or our Africans or whatever we are, we'll close other black people out, but we let white people in. What? And sometimes, Richard Pryor had a joke where he said, y'all niggas don't want to join shit, but a lot of y'all joined America. And I wasn't as pro-black as I am now. But when he said, I get it now, he's like, y'all motherfuckers fight so hard for a country that either stole you from where you're from or stole your land right from under you. And you're fighting for that? You're fighting to be part of that. Like, no, they owe you. They pay everybody else reparations. Everybody gets paid reparations. But your people, and either you're Native American and they owe you reparations, or you're African American and you built so much of this shit. And you got to remember, the Queen said, if you don't believe in God, y'all can be slaves. So they enslaved Native Americans when they first got here. So that's why they had all these Indian wars and stuff that we don't even talk about. There were wars in 1400s, 1700s, 1600s, 1500s that we don't talk about. But that lets you know the whole narrative is what we're told is that we didn't fight. We fought for years before this was so-called America.
Well, then you also have another form of attack through grassroots movements, and that are actually AstroTurf roots movements.
Yeah, I love when you say that. What about that? I sent you that video where it talks about the main ones pushing transgenderism.
Okay, let's speak to that directly. So one is a guy from India, and one is a guy originally from China. And the guy from India, his name is Neville Roy Singham.
Is it Singham? Singham. Okay.
And then the guy from China is Joe Tsai, Tsai. Now, let me tell you about the Indian guy. So, Neville Roy Singham is a well-known Marxist and has been the main source of funding for the People's Forum since 2017. Now, the organization describes itself as a movement incubator for working class and marginalized communities to build unity across historical lines of division at home and abroad. If you boil that down to its essence, that is youth, the color revolution for youth, or communism. Singham and his wife, Jody Evans, have donated over $20 million to the People's Forum from 2017 to 2022. And there's a report on him that states the money was moved to the People's Forum through shell organizations and advisory groups. There is a tendency of the People's Forum to fund anti-war movements. But if anybody has any memory of the war movements in the United States, they always get infiltrated by intelligence agencies. And that's how the anti-war movement in the United States was intercepted by intelligence agencies who got into the counterculture with LSD and MK Ultra and took these things over and ran them off the rails.
What's the political party in China? The CCP? They, I want to.
The communist Chinese party. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been around for 50, 60 years. They've been around for years, and they love to snatch up black folks that were disenfranchised because they're like, oh, yeah, communism. There's no racism in communism. Yeah, because your black ass don't realize that they got rid of all the black people already. Look, there's a joke that's circulating right now when Robin Williams was in Germany, and he's on his talk show, and he's telling all these jokes. He's killing it. He's funny as hell, and the host asked the question. It's a female talk show host. She said, "Why do you think they're? Why? How, I want to say it correctly." She says, "Why do you think we don't have more funny people in Germany like you?" And he says, "You killed them all during World War II." He's talking about the Jews. They never let us. They cut to commercial, but it just shows.
We'll be right back.
But it shows you the irony of what he said. Also, the other guy that was Joe. You said Joe Singh. Joe, isn't that the one that?
Joe Tsai is the Chinese guy. Neville Roy Singham is the Indian guy. But see, he's also doing that. He's spreading pro-China communism messages in India.
They both are. But which one is the one that Prize got in trouble with? Was that Joe Singh? That Prize took $30 million from him and donated to the Democratic Party. That's Joe Singh, right? It's just odd how they promote transgenderism over here in America, but that's not what they support in their home countries.
Okay, they do not, because they are all about a pro-masculinity message on their broadcast, and that's why they don't put any effeminate guys on TV
at all. See, but that's the whole issue. They are what they're doing is a psyop, as you say. What they're doing is a straight up attack. It's war, and what it is that you got people because they giving them money. They're like, oh yeah, they support us. No, they don't support you. They support your message. They don't like you. They wouldn't dare let you.
The guy that was basically using. Okay, so Praz was used as a conduit to get communist Chinese money into the Obama campaign. And the Malaysian businessman, Joe Low,
I'm sorry,
LOW, was the guy that was working with Praz.
I apologize. I just know every Chinese guy is named Joe, man. Every Asian guy is Joe. But I apologize. Joe Singh is a different guy. He's pushing the CCP. Joe Low was trying to get that communist money into the Democratic Party, which the Democratic Party has had communist infiltrators from the beginning back in the 40s and 50s. The Red Scare was not a scare. The Red Scare, you think of Hollywood, you think of communists in Hollywood, but the Red Scare really was the infiltration of the Democratic Party by communists. Again, that's why we said that drawbridge idea of, you know what, some things we just don't need. And then people tell you, okay, well, now you're being racist, you're being sexist, you're being this.
During the summer of 2020, when the George Floyd campaign was going across America, the riots came to Atlanta. People would lock arms and walk across the interstate to block cars and traffic. And there was also riots in downtown and midtown Atlanta. And people were going up the street, and black people were peacefully protesting. And these white dudes showed up, these saboteurs, and they started busting windows out. They had their face covered because they didn't want anybody to know that they were government agents. And they are an example of how the government influences or tries to get into these countercultural groups. But then there was one video that summer of this bearded, short, white guy. And he was giving these black teenagers commands to go and break and destroy shit. But he wasn't doing any of this stuff himself. And I'm thinking to myself, why are y'all listening to this motherfucker? Like, what is wrong with y'all?
See, that's the problem. People have these new wave movements confused with black power and other things. You know, there's a confusion. And no, breaking stuff ain't the answer. Now, if you got to fight somebody, if there's a war, if there's a legitimate objective, that's one thing. The same thing during George Floyd. I lived downtown Omaha. They had about 20, 30 black young women, 20, probably 15 through 27, maybe one or two 30. They were protesting in front of City Hall. They were doing their message. They had their signs. They were doing great. People started joining them. All of a sudden, you had these kids from the suburbs, and I don't mean the suburbs in Omaha. I mean these white folks came from all over and started busting up windows.
But what happened around that time? You sent me a link to a Craigslist ad.
Yes, I haven't even got to that part yet. So they were looking for saboteurs, and they guaranteed you if you were to break something, they would get you out of
bailed
jail.
Out.
And they were paying $20-something an hour for protesting. And so, sure enough,
since when has that become a job?
A job.
Who can afford to pay for this?
But see, and this is real. When the black kids that went to jail, they were in jail for 4 or 5 days. Them white kids from other places that went to jail, they were out that night or the next morning. No bullshit. The other part, and again, we talked about this on the air, so it's been 3 or 4 years. I'll bring it up again. We went to the Malcolm X Foundation to protest, get our shit together, and there were license plates from all over. And they weren't the black people. The black people were mostly people from this area, from Lincoln, Omaha, maybe a few, stragglers came from other places. But those white folks were from all over, Louisiana, New York, other places. And then the white people, they brought their water. They had they had these patches that weren't quite communism, but I didn't recognize these patches on them. And they had this, and I guess they thought they were going to take over. I said, you didn't come to the right place, bro. Your message
there was somebody. There was a brother that was like an MC of the event, and he called them out and told them they didn't belong there.
Yeah, that's Leo. He's like, y'all don't belong here. No, he's like, we have no problem with white people joining our struggle. Y'all don't belong here. He called them out because if you
how many of those people were there?
7, maybe 10. But
could you not make out what the patch was?
I don't remember what it is now, but it was a weird patch. That it wasn't communism. It wasn't something like.
Does it look like a militia?
Yeah. Okay. So they had their faces covered, and they had that burnt earth type of camo with vests on, the brown camo. They had that shit.
They had tactical gear.
Yes, their faces were covered. They had their patches, and I told my wife, I don't recognize that patch. So I went and got my sister and my wife. I said, y'all stay behind me, because if these motherfuckers act a fool, I'm shooting them. My sister was there, and I'm like, I'm letting y'all know, I don't know what that is. I know a lot of shit, but I don't know what that is. And so they brought water, and that Leo was like, nah, y'all ain't welcome here. All these other people.
What kind of water did they bring? What do you mean? Was it like a bunch of 24 packs of bottled water?
Yeah. They brought about maybe 200 packs of bottled water, 300 or 400 packs.
You don't know what was in that water.
No, you sound like Steve Coakley. But the fact that they wore a mask, you know what I'm saying?
But nobody else had a mask on. Mm-mm. See, that's the crazy thing. Crazy thing, because at that time, it was full COVID hysteria. And
period.
The rest of the funny stuff, people don't remember that everybody was so punked and bitched out about to wear a mask. And then the George Floyd shit happened, and all the black folks was like, fuck them masks. We freeballing. And the crazy part about it, the liberal white folks didn't want that smoke. They wasn't saying shit about masks when black people was tearing up. Well, tear it up with a mask on.
Let me explain something to you. I was raised by a mother that believed in fighting. You notice my answer for a lot of shit was to hit somebody.
Your mom was more, whether she admitted it or not, your mom was more Malcolm X than MLK.
She knew more about MLK, but she was down with she was down with Malcolm all day. But it was just, my mom was just one of those people that, look, you don't let somebody put their hands on you, don't let somebody invade certain shit. Certain things are sacred. And if violence is the answer, just make sure they know what the question is too.
My whole thing is like, when I was a kid, it was like, explain to me why he's the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Explain why. No, I'm not. But I was like, the fire was already in me back then. I was like, explain why he's the bad guy.
Look, the bottom line is that what people, the most obvious thing is the nonviolent shit because do you know how hard it is to get people to take up guns now? It's fucking, and when you, I'm giving an example, you're brainwashed into thinking that the intelligent people don't use guns. The dumb people use guns. If you use a gun, you're dumb. You don't want to be dumb, do you? Excuse me?
That's gaslighting.
Yes. And so we were Martin Luther King. He has his doctorate. Dr. Martin Luther King doesn't do violence. Man, that nigga had bodyguards. Again, what we know now and what's coming out, we didn't know back then. All we knew is that I remember being a kid, and we had a black principal, so they talked about him getting stabbed. They talked about him going to jail. They talked about all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, man, he was this, he was tough. I'm like, nah, man. When you come on my property, I'm shooting you. And that's what was so important about that recording you sent me last week, where it was talking about W.E. Du Bois, who, again, we all like, light-skinned Negro, he's Yale.
They made you think that he was some soft little punk.
And no, in 1905, he talked about shooting terrorists and spreading their guts on the grass. That's not a paraphrase, my nigga.
Tell them why. Explain why.
Oh, hold it. You have to explain better because you were discussing Georgia. You were discussing Atlanta and that area. You were discussing.
W.E.B. Du Bois was working within the community in various cities in Alabama.
He had to come back home.
He had to go back home because he was run off by violent people with guns in Alabama. But he couldn't run anymore when he was home. And he had to stand and protect his home because there were race riots in Atlanta in 1908. And those race riots were artificial. They were created because of voting, because of voter suppression, because they saw blacks actually after the war, and they had developed a financial base in the city of Atlanta that almost rivaled Tulsa, Oklahoma. But what was crazy about Tulsa, Oklahoma is the fact that it's way bigger than people will tell you about it. And now, here's some real drawbridge bullshit. House Bill 1775 that was introduced in the peak of the COVID pandemic.
2020.
No, it's 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
I remember.
The same year, 100 years after the Tulsa race riot massacre. And this House bill prevents educators from teaching and speaking about Tulsa in a in a genocidal way, in a racist way, in a way that paints white people as the suspects in this crime. And this bill, the language that it uses, specifically states you cannot speak about the history of Tulsa in a way that would hurt somebody's feelings. If you're not telling the truth, you hurt my feelings. So what's up with that?
But the only feelings that matter are white feelings, and that's what we got to put out there. And we talked about this on not the last podcast, but the podcast before, where it was so deep. Where they talk about they named the names, they had named these families, and those come to find out those families are still in power in Tulsa, the white families. And so, like I said, this shit was super deep. What you had sent me. Look, what we're trying to say, and that sometimes you don't need outside influence. Sometimes outside influence, all it does is give you too many choices or too many things to think about. And while you're thinking about that, the fucking oppressor or the enemy, whether it's Satan, the Klan, America, or Soviet Union, whoever, they are acting while you're thinking. Sometimes too much thinking ain't a good thing. Sometimes you're sitting there, you're dwelling on some shit, and the answer is no. Hell to the no. And you got to remember that. Look, you said some deep shit. We were always given the idea that our black heroes were all nonviolent because King was nonviolent. King was, and again, King applied for concealed carry. King had bodyguards with weapons. You had cats with grease guns protecting them, automatic weapons. So the reason Ronald Reagan made automatic weapons illegal wasn't because of one or two spree shooters. It was because of the Black Panther Party in California when he was governor. Y'all need to understand. The reason Ronald Reagan said, "Hey man, a shotgun is enough," because those white boys had shotguns in the back of their trucks. But the niggas, the Black Panther Party was coming with heat, with real heat, and when that happened, that changed the whole dynamic. Uh, Please, people, just recognize that everything ain't for you, and I think I think we need to talk about that in a relationship sense. Hey, so earlier you had talked about like being sick. I'm gonna say so. I gotta ask you. You remember when we was in kindergarten? There was this one chick that always had a runny nose, and it was always like that green slime shit. I had you, you know who I'm talking about.
I saw a little kid a couple months ago that had that green slime snot coming out of his nose. I'm like, what is that?
Remember her name was Ginger. That's not a real name, but
no. Okay, so
say her name. Say her name.
Hold on. There was Jennifer. There was two different Jennifers. And there was one Jennifer who got like the pebbles from the playground stuck in her nose. There was Jennifer R. and there was Jennifer F. Jennifer F was the one that got the pebbles stuck in her nose.
No. I'm talking about the black girl. There was a light skinned black girl that went to school with us in like first grade.
Oh, hold on. Was her hair like blondish?
Yes.
Gemini.
Yeah. Or she had another name. She had two names. It was the Gemini or Sugar. And that was her name. And this girl always had green snot. I had to ask my mom, like, Mom, my snot don't look like that. Every once in a while I'm sick. This girl had a perpetual cold. And it was always about a quarter inch hanging down, no matter what she did. Like she'd be taking a test, she'd be in recess, she'd be in lunch. That motherfucker just chilling. And I'm like, she would blow her nose, right back another one. And I'm like, but it was like lime green. It looked like chronic. It looked like either
What that sounds like is a black child that was raised by a white mother who didn't know how to care for black children.
I don't think so.
Yes. No. Because her hair was never done. No. Look at all the girls that were in our school. You notice all them black girls always had their hair done. Even like, I'm not in an elaborate way, but like look at this. Remember all the Sanyas? All the Sanyas always had their hair at least done in a basic way. Ribbons and like bows, beads. You know what I'm saying?
Remember they would tie the yarn in the end?
Yes. All the Kims always had their hair done. You know what I'm saying? All of them, man. All of them. The girls' names start with an L. Always had their hair done.
I'm saying this to make a point.
All the Alicias always had their hair done. But this girl, listen. This girl, she was like the Josh Koscheck of little black girls in our school. Okay.
And she had blonde hair all over her body. like her arms.
She was mixed. She was a black girl and she had blonde hair, but she had Negro curly hair.
Look, I'm telling you, I don't remember her parents.
She was mixed. She was mixed.
But hold it. But what you talk, I remember one dude that mixed, and I got in a fight with. His name was Alfie. Now, his mama was my.
And he was a serial rapist. He probably grew up to be a serial rapist.
Like he would joke with you and grab. Look, the point I'm making is that
that motherfucker never touched my nuts, but I think you socked his ass though.
Yeah, I really beat his ass. no bulls. I probably went too far, but I just was like, and I threw a chair at him and everything. I went too far.
Yeah, I am a boy, Damon. That's what you said to him.
But my point being, we when you sat there and said during COVID, we didn't give a fuck. We back then, we knew about diseases, but we weren't scared. It's like, fuck it. Okay, somebody's sick. Somebody got cancer. Okay, shit, whatever. We still got shit to do. Oh, okay. And so I think
everybody was free balling during those riots.
But my point being is that when we were kids, we were in all kinds of conditions. We went to all kinds of places. We played at different people's houses. And I think the other funny thing that me and you joked about one time, but we really never talked about, was the only really poor people. You had a couple of poor black people in our neighborhood, but you also had one or two poor white people in our neighborhood. Like we had nice houses. We lived in good middle class area. But you remember the sports kid. I remember one time his water was off, and his mom made him go get buckets of water from somebody else we knew, and I'm just like, man, black
There was
people.
kids that came to school smelling like pee.
Well, some of them, it was bladder infection. Some of them, wet the bed. Whatever the case was, but we were around all of them, and none
There
of
was
us
a
got
kid that
sick.
had his mama use bacon grease to comb his hair with.
Excuse me.
Yeah, William.
Man, that wasn't true. Well,
Yes, man, that motherfucker smelled like bacon, bruh.
I remember when him and the other weird kid got in a fight.
Yeah.
William,
Hold on. So it was him and the other kid that started with A. His name starts with an A.
no, he got
Okay.
into he got into it with the big white boy named Bruce. Like really,
Oh, I remember Bruce.
yeah, he looked like a pep like
He
a
looked like
Charlie
he
Brown.
looked like a melted snowman with glasses on.
So imagine William, 6'4", little Richard weighed 300 pounds. And he talked like, and remember his mama looked like Miss Jefferson, looked like George Jefferson's mama, looked like
His
a
mom looked like she
light
kept
skin.
a handle of some damn night train
No,
in her
hold,
purse.
hold it. His grandma looked like Miss Jefferson. Remember, his grandma was light skinned and looked like a gorilla. His mama was just really tall and looked like a substitute teacher that drank
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm just saying, we had all these different people, and we weren't worried about catching us. We weren't worried about shit. They make you paranoid for other reasons. And all I know is that we knew how to act. We knew we were respectful of parents. We knew how to act. We didn't fuck up shit, and we didn't let a bunch of commie motherfuckers get into our shit. Now, when I was a kid and you would hear that shit in a movie, them commie bastards, you'd be like, man, commie, what's wrong with communism? It's a worker's paradise. Bullshit. Communists are racist too.
Let's check this
And
out. So this is a October 22, 2021 statement from Senator Bullard of Oklahoma. He released a statement supporting House Bill 1775. He says, recently the ACLU filed a lawsuit to try and stop a law that has passed in our most recent legislative session. House Bill 1775 was signed into law by Governor Stitt earlier this year and protects our children across the state from being taught revisionist history in that one race or sex is inherently superior to another by race or sex, and that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. This motherfucker is muddying the water by trying to say this is critical race theory by teaching the fact that the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma was built on a cold case crime scene.
even the other part, like when you would listen to the survivors, there's a couple, if you can find them, are really good videos of these people when they were in their 80s and 90s talking about it. And you got to remember, this girl was 3 and 4 years old when this happened. The last survivor died right around the time of this bill. She was over 100 years old. This bill, you got to remember, this happened in 1921. The other part that Roscoe brought to my attention is that they rebuilt in 1924, rebuilt everything, came back stronger. They lost it in the 40s when they got all this government money to buy up the neighborhoods. That was a psyop. You must understand that the burning or the bombing of Tulsa is not what killed Tulsa. What killed Tulsa was federal money. And that just shows you, that goes back to Senator Moynihan and the benign neglect, that goes back to the cognitive dissonance and all these other big words that are used against black people. And we get screwed over. Look, when it comes to your own community, you're supposed to have community control. It's way more important than all this other shit they talk about. You must have control of your own area. And when you do not, that means you're subject to somebody else's will, whether it's another political party, whether it's somebody who I ran for office over here, but I live on the border. Look, we're going through this stuff in Omaha where our mayor Stothard lives in Missouri. She don't even live here, and her husband allegedly killed himself for her to marry her new boyfriend. That's the shit I'm talking about. Oh yeah, it's beautiful, my brother. Um,
How is she still the mayor?
because she wasn't doing it, the city council was running it. Now she's trying to do her job now, and she's arguing with the city council. With oh
So
man,
she's not even from there.
no, she was from Omaha. She had been in Omaha for years, but when she started dating this dude, she bought a house in Missouri, and her husband was still here practicing medicine. He fucked up a surgery, and then he allegedly killed himself, and they called that a suicide in 3 hours. Didn't where was the investigation? Are you sure that she just didn't, do something to this dude?
How
But
convenient that
convenience.
malpractice and infidelity are happening at the same
Same time,
time.
can you imagine how this man's life? Oh, look. Like I said, you got some shit you got to keep out your house. Sometimes you got to keep bullshit out your life. Sometimes you got to keep your family out your life. Sometimes your family can bring the bullshit. Like we're big on protecting our family. You got some distant relatives, you got some immediate relatives that can bring bullshit. You got some people that are they grow up, they get a mate, and all of a sudden everything in their past was bad. That's not true. Some people are weak, some people are strong. But we can't even use those words anymore. You talk about suicide, first thing out your mouth is suicide's this. I'm like, I don't know, man. That pressure probably got to that motherfucker. Maybe if he had talked to a real nigga, and a real nigga would have told him, cut that shit out, get out there and get a new girlfriend, get out there and chill them feels, get out there and make your way. You're responsible for your own happiness, and then maybe that motherfucker wouldn't kill himself. Uh, oh man, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No, because also like some of this comes down to self-help as well. And
Yeah,
there's only so much you can do for a person, and at some point you got to pull up the drawbridge. I was talking with this cat today. We were doing some work, and he told me how he was in a tough spot, but he was also in a relationship at the same time. And I said, "Well, do you and that woman have any kids together?" He said, "No." And then he said, for different reasons or a multitude of reasons, both of them became entwined with infidelity and began to cheat on each other. And then he told me how this woman he was in a relationship with wasn't really trying to better herself. And then she was staying, in shelters and shit like that. And I'm like, dude, listen, if you don't have anything tying you to that person and y'all both cheating on each other, then what are you doing? Just get the fuck out of there. It's over. Like, the shit is over. And that person isn't doing anything to better themselves. But I see you, you know what I'm saying? You're showing up. You're an honest worker. I mean, you do your fucking job and shit, man. Get the fuck out of there, man. Like, listen, sometimes you got to just let a person be alone so they can help themselves. Because this is one thing. I have been on that struggle bus. And I know what it's like to be poor and be in love, to be in a relationship and do your damnness to try and to keep the relationship going. But also, because everybody deserves happiness, man. But there are times in your life when you have to cut everything that is not essential, where you have to sacrifice everything non-essential
there's times when you got to
so
be the
you can
bad guy.
move up. No, 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 not be the bad guy. When
No, no,
when you have to preserve yourself so
yes,
that you
yes.
can be a better version of yourself, so that maybe you and that person come back again and make amends, maybe you can get together again. But at this point, I got to save myself. I got to get myself in a better situation so I can be a provider. Because let me tell you something right now. Nobody has any mercy for a struggling man. Nobody. Because we are primordial beings and it's always inside of us. And if you cannot go out and hunt or kill or gather, there's no
You'll
mercy for
starve.
you.
You'll
There's
die.
no mercy for you. But women have mercy because there's mercy for them because they can make children. They can support life.
Nowadays, nobody wants to break up with anybody because they don't want to be the bad guy. I'm saying sometimes you got to be the bad guy, not be abusive. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that you know what, that I have to take control of my own happiness and my own life, and I gotta. Hey, we're breaking up. Go do what you. Hold it, because I
You
was
say
good at
that shit
breaking up.
like the show's over.
Yeah,
There won't be any more episodes.
No, what I'm saying is that when you're in a relationship and for some reason the shit's over, cool. Sometimes you got to work through it. Sometimes you can't. That's for you and that woman or man or whoever to come together and figure it out. Because one time, we talked about this in our past podcast. I was joking, but I wasn't. I said back in the day, the reason people stay together for 80, 90 years is because they didn't have all the choices they got now. You lived in a small community, you got married, you had a couple kids. Hey, the dude might cheat, the woman might cheat, but hey, fuck it. Nobody knew about it. You didn't have social media. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, there was a chick I was with, man. As soon as I found out she was on cocaine, I was out. I'm out. I'm out.
Now, I'm not saying that she wasn't worth it. I'm saying that
I'm saying she wasn't worth it, motherfucker.
I said you worth it. You're like, fuck it, I ain't gonna deal with this shit. Some people would have said that you're being the bad guy by breaking up. Nah. I'm abandoning a problem.
That situation, what I was telling him, this situation is not gonna get better as it is.
But you're giving him wisdom. What you're saying is maybe when you both heal, you guys
because I've been where he was. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling this guy, listen, this situation is not improving. You got to heal yourself first. You got to get stable. You got to get to a place where you can actually flourish, because with her, it's not happening because she does not want to improve herself. You got to bounce.
Look, the lesson that you should have been called that love don't love nobody. Mm-hmm. Just because you in love don't love you back. Hell, that person ain't got to love you back. So you got to learn that love don't love nobody, but you got to love yourself enough to know when to let go.
It's crazy though, but I had to tell him, I was like, hey, that ain't it, dog. That's not the move.
Run, jog, walk, but you got to walk in a different direction.
Fast. Start fucking running.
Hey, see, here's a problem that nobody talks about, and when you're in a bad relationship, if that bitch got good pussy, shit, man, you'll tolerate a lot, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, just fuck it, I can't do it.
Yeah, but I eventually reached a point where that there had to be more than just the pussy.
Pussy's a lot.
No, but it didn't take me long to figure that shit out, because what was happening to me before that is it was
draining.
No, I was beginning to learn about chakras and meditation and how the emotions are generated by the organs of the body. And yes. I then began to see bodies as vessels. And these earthly things, the desires of the flesh, it had less of a hold on me once I learned these things. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then also I learned that, man, you cannot have every woman that you want, dog. Like, you can't.
Nope. That's not good for you. Because what you base that on the desire. That's what you're seeing, something that's attracting you.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I look all the time. You know what I'm saying? Look at that. No. But no. Am I chasing it? No.
No. Hey, man. I think we need to do a few more episodes about relationships, because I'm seeing all these relationship stuff, and a lot of these motherfuckers, a lot of people are beating up on women, and I understand why. The biggest issue out there that nobody wants to address, that black women have been brainwashed into thinking that they don't need a man. They don't. You are a whole person. You can survive without a man. But when you come into a relationship, you got to abandon that behavior. And all these women are on this shit where they won't let a nigga lead. Now, hold it. Not every nigga's a leader. Let's keep it real. Like, nobody wants to say that part. You got all these motherfucking Hebrews and Muslims. The man needs to lead the household. Like, look, you not everybody's built like that, and it frustrates you when you're dealing with somebody who ain't like you, and sometimes you try to talk to them about real shit. I can't say what I want to say.
All right, got it. So look, to close this out, close that fucking drawbridge and keep the trash out of your house. That's all I got. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.